Good morning, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, to our public forum today. Today, we're fortunate to have the chairman of Federation Ratepaying, Mr. David Bott, to speak to the forum. Council has granted permission and is recording the public forum today, so that will be available on Council's website after the meeting. And Council has given permission to submit individuals to record the forum as well. Thank you, Dave.
Well, firstly, I'd just like to thank the Mayor and the councillors for providing me with the opportunity to represent Federation Ratepayers in addressing the motion that's been brought to before you today by Councillor Fahey in request for an independent peer review. Federation Ratepayers Incorporated strongly support and welcome the motion that's been moved today for an independent external review of Council's financial sustainability and operational performance. We view this review as a critical opportunity for Council to engage with the community in a positive and genuine manner, an opportunity that doesn't come along very often, and when presented, we believe needs to be grasped very firmly and used with respect and appropriateness. We believe this process should be a tripartite arrangement between the three parties: Council, independent reviewer and the community. We believe the best way to establish strong community engagement within this process and review would be to have provision within the scope of the review for a community reference group or the likes of, which would provide an external oversight to the review process. This would establish a sense of trust which has been missing between the council and the community. This trust and sense of ownership of the review will be critical for the adoption of the review's findings and recommendations upon completion. This community reference group, along with the council and the reviewer, should set out on the journey together, right from the initial stages, starting with a walkthrough of the terms of reference or scope, where matters relevant to the review can be surfaced and evidenced based on good consideration of the facts presented. Good governance within the review process will also be critical, we believe, in again restoring the community's faith and trust in council, which will come as a direct result of genuine engagement by the council with the community throughout the review process. This governance could come in the form of weekly update meetings, for example, between the three parties, where findings can be discussed and fleshed out along the way. We believe the true cost of genuinely not engaging with the community in this review process will not be the financial cost, but rather the lost opportunity cost of not establishing the trust and faith that are so vital in all the hallmarks of strong councils and strong communities alike. This review, in our opinion, must look and take into account the operational performance of the council, as this has such a direct and significant impact on the financial position and future sustainability of the council. To ensure best bang for buck, we would encourage recommendations and findings from the review that look to the future of Federation Council for financial sustainability and operational efficiencies, rather than the past history and the pros and cons of the merged former councils, Cora and Urantia. To us, simply, this is a three-legged stool. And the three legs comprise, obviously, the council, the reviewer and the community. And if one of those legs is missing or isn't given an adequate respect, then the stool falls over and the opportunity is lost for us all. This is a once opportunity, a one shot in the barrel. If we don't get this right and everybody feels that they have a sense of ownership of this review process, then nothing good will come of it. We won't be able to roll the pages back and try this process again. It needs to be unequivocally a no-holds-barred review that looks at all the options, puts everything on the table, examines every option available to both the council and the community. And they all need to have adequate input into the process. I implore you to give due consideration to the motion today and to make some changes where necessary to ensure that the community is engaged with throughout the whole process and again has a sense of ownership and a belief that it is being done in the best interest. I thank you for the time and give it due consideration. Happy to take any questions if anyone would like to.
Thank you, David. Councillors, any questions at all to David? Thank you. Councillor Nichols.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, David. You suggested weekly meetings with the community. Obviously, time is money, and if there is a protracted number of community engagements and not perhaps captured in the fee that's been put into the motion, how is that paid for?
The community meetings as such, I'm not suggesting that they would be a public community meeting initially. I think it's important that there is a community consultation group established that council call for people to nominate to be on that committee. And that committee would provide feedback to the reviewer and to the council. It might only be a committee or a group of 6. That's something that council would need to look at. I think the cost would be fairly insignificant, as most of those people are going to be providing their own time. They're doing it out of the genuine willingness of their hearts to see a result that's beneficial to all.
I'd agree with that. I'm pertaining more to, if we engage consultants, their costs, for example, which obviously council needs to wear. I'm just mindful that, certainly from experience, time is money, and the more time you spend talking, the more it costs.
Yeah, I think the reviewer, I would imagine, again, this would have to be given consideration to the scope of the review, but I would imagine that the reviewer, certainly the ones that we have looked at, are very willing and actually encourage that sort of interaction with both the community and the council, because ultimately it is, as I say, a tri-part arrangement and needs to be successful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Black.
Thank you. Thanks, David, for your presentation. Just following on from that, has Professor Drew, have they had community consultations? Has that been done before? Is there a precedence for that?
Certainly in the Snowy Valleys review that he's done recently, that is part of the process that he tries to instigate. I think it appears to be one of the cornerstones of his reviews. He's trying to bring everyone along with him, and it very much focuses on the community being engaged along with the council and the reviewer to bring forward the recommendations. No one likes surprises at the end of it. The last thing we would want is a draft to be presented to the council and the community that, at that stage it's too late to have the findings or the input into it, to actually give the recommendations and actions that are necessary to make the changes that are going to provide us with the financial and operational sustainability that we're all seeking.
David, just a comment. First of all, thank you very much for coming and speaking today. I have to disagree with your comments on trust within the community. I think, yes, there could be a small portion of people that are asking questions and may not have trust, but I think the majority have a lot of faith in council. Council's done a lot of extremely important, in-depth work to get to this point. Where we've come to have the review to consolidate the work that we've done and to probably bring the community or any portions of the community that have questions or concerns to override them, to clear them. My idea behind the review would be absolutely 3 legs, if not 4, where the community would be consulted, committees, councillors, staff of the council, to take in the whole council ratepayer picture so that we don't want to be going back after the review and saying, well, this didn't happen and that didn't happen. We need to conduct a review that does cover off everything within the council operational wise. And I think the motion that's been put before us today, at the end of that motion, does cover off that any other matters that council would like to add to the review as well. Also need milestones within that review because we need benchmark. This needs to be benchmarked to the point where we've had a start. Here we are now, 7 years later, and we've got from this point here going forward. What's it going to take council financially, operationally to get to the state that we wish to be in for the communities? So I would be on the same page as you. I want to, as my personal opinion, and I'm sure the councillors would have the same, want to cover off on everything possible within this review and everything you've spoken about. That's our intention.
We certainly welcome that, Mr. Mayor. And in regards to looking back and the demerger, I guess our concern is that if the media are running with the notion that this might be facilitating a possible demerger, it takes the focus off the real main game, which ultimately is trying to find the answers to our financial sustainability. And that's got to be viewed through an operational window first. That feeds back into the financial side of it. So, it's fine to understand how we've got to this point, but ultimately it's how we move forward from this point that's most critical. And the best way of doing that, I think, we believe as a group, is by bringing the community with you. We could probably argue the toss whether there's an element of mistrust or not. Certainly, there possibly is in some areas and not in others. But the critical bit is that we all move forward together. And the best way of doing that, we believe, is by getting into the motion right from the outset, the ability for a community reference group to be involved in the process.
Absolutely. Any further questions, councillors? If not,
I've got one on screen.
we have Councillor Whitchurch. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, David, for your presentation. And obviously, it has been a 7-year journey since the amalgamation, of which I was fortunate enough to come in at the start of it with some of the other councillors here in the room today, as well as some that were in the former Corowa Shire. And yeah, it's certainly been an interesting time. And it got to the point where council had been informed through various groups and government authorities that with the amount of capital work that needs to be done, that we've got to be diligent and making sure that we are going to be sustainable. So as part of council's planning, it was always going to be that we were going to be looking at getting some sort of health check done, I guess, on the business and the business model. But before we could do that, we had to make sure we had things going in what the councillors and council staff believe was the right way. What I see in the community is a lot of varied opinions, of which obviously you've got one of them. There's also people in the community that have a varied opinion to yourself, and they've got varied opinions to councillors and what council's doing. I think that the motion that's on the table today is basically getting somebody in that does this for a living and is a professor in it. I don't think we need to be trying to tell him how to do an investigation into a council, because I think that we're going to be given probably the best guidance and the best result that we could ask for, and that is the position of council for its sustainability. So take on board what you say, but I believe, as the Mayor said, that the motion that's in front of us is probably a pretty good summary of what needs to be done to move forward as the Federation Council. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitchurch. Councillors, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this might be a question for Adrian. I agree with David that this is really a unique opportunity, and your reference to the stool is very apt. We really need to strengthen relationships between the three pillars. My question is around the reference group. My understanding for what conversation we've had is that the professor will go to different community groups around Federation. So is that in addition to having a reference group or would it just be all through the reference group?
Thanks, Councillor Hughes. I'm sort of mindful that we're in public forum, so it's probably a good question in council meeting itself. But a couple of comments, we recorded anyway, so it's worthwhile. I think it's important that everyone remembers that there's a terms of reference got to be developed if this motion's passed, and then a procurement process to gain that consultant that we need on board, and then obviously in the terms of reference and in any of these submissions that come in from Professor Drew or any others, if they do come in, it's it's what we ask for as council, guided by the community, and then what they provide in their response to then get engaged, which I'd assume will be the June ordinary meeting. And council goes out with some quotes to get those to come in, and then that would cover the community engagement piece. But as I think our speakers mentioned, strong input about what that community engagement looks like, because that's what all governments are tested and challenged on every day, is how much we do engage and whether it's good enough or not. So I think it's on us to make sure, if it's Drew that's done a lot of other reports, that it's not just a cookie cutter one that's used. I'm not saying he'd do that at all, but as far as if he's got his methodology or his team, it doesn't mean that it's going to work for Federation in a good way. Federation might want to say that they might want to have more engagement, or these weekly reference groups. He may do that. I haven't looked in depth at what he's done at the other councils. I know the other councils he has had, they've been very well anti-merger groups set up. So in some ways it was probably handy to him in ways where he could have gone out and easily gathered groups because they're well established by mergers. We're not in that position, so it's interesting to see how we work forward, but really important, I think, for the in the meeting itself for those questions and comments.
If I may just add to that, that's why I think it's so critical that there is a walkthrough of the terms of reference before anything's actually signed off on it. There's community input into the actual scope and terms and reference of what this review will entail. That straight away immediately gives all three parties a sense of ownership and a sense of input into the actual framework that this review will structure. Now, and just reply to Councillor Whitechurch's comment. Now, by no means are we suggesting how the likes of Professor Drew will carry out this review. There's certainly the skill set to entice, say how he should conduct it. What we're looking for is for some genuine engagement from the community to be involved in the process. I no doubt Professor Drew would welcome that, because, as I said earlier, it's got to form one of the three critical pillars of this review.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? If not, I'd just like to particularly thank you, David, for all the work you've done and the robust discussions over time. I think it's been very healthy, and it's good because we get different views on lots of things, and that's how you come to good decisions. And I just like us all to remember we're all on the same team. We're ratepayers and residents, and the outcome is, as you've said, we want the best for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And any way we can go about getting that, with whether it be robust discussions, reviews, etc., we'll go forward just for that point, to come together and build a better region or shire for everyone to live in.
Thank you again.
And thank you all. We'll have a short break and start again at 9:30.